My name is Tessa Whitmore. I'm 32 years old, a payroll specialist living in Columbus, Ohio, and for most of my adult life, my family treated me like the one person who never quite measured up. I wasn't poor exactly, but compared with my parents and older brother, I might as well have been. My parents owned a small chain of auto repair shops outside the city. My brother Derek worked for them and drove a brand new truck. His wife Lauren loved designer handbags and expensive restaurants. Meanwhile, I lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment, drove a 10-year-old Honda, and kept a strict budget every month. I wasn't ashamed of it. My life was simple, but I had built it myself. What I didn't realize was that my family had already decided my modest life made me less important than everyone else. And one dinner would show me exactly how little they respected me. It happened on a Friday night. My parents were celebrating the 20th anniversary of their first repair shop. They rented a private room at an upscale restaurant and invited relatives, friends, business partners, and several employees. I almost didn't go. I had spent the previous 6 months working overtime while studying for a professional certification in payroll and business operations. I was exhausted. But my mother called me that afternoon. "You are coming tonight, right?" "Of course," I said. There was a pause. "Just try to dress nicely." I laughed awkwardly. "I'll do my best." When I arrived, I immediately noticed the difference between me and everyone else. Derek greeted me wearing a tailored suit. Lauren hugged me while staring at my shoes. "Those are cute," she said. I knew exactly what cute meant. My mother smiled when she saw me. "You made it. Wouldn't miss it." She looked at my dress. "It's very practical." That was my family. They could turn a compliment into an insult without changing their expression. Still, I sat down and tried to enjoy myself. For the first hour, everything was normal. People talked about business. My father told stories about how he started the company with one rented garage and an old toolbox. Everyone applauded. Then my father raised his glass. "To the next 20 years. Everyone cheered. Derek stood up and said, "And hopefully, Dad, I'll be the one running this place by then." My father laughed. "I wouldn't mind that." Everyone looked at Derek. Then someone asked what I did. Before I could answer, Lauren laughed. "Oh, Tessa handles payroll." She said it like she was explaining that I folded napkins. Derek added, "Basically, she counts pennies all day." The table laughed. I smiled politely. Then my father said something that hurt more than the joke. "At least she's good at something." The laughter got louder. I looked around the table. Nobody defended me. Not even my mother. That was the moment something inside me changed. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply put down my glass and said, "Excuse me." I went to the restroom and stared at myself in the mirror. For years, I had worked so hard to prove I was worthy of their respect. That night, I realized I didn't need it anymore. What my family didn't know was that 3 months earlier, I had interviewed for a senior operations position at a regional business group called Hartwell Services. The company owned several businesses, including auto repair locations. I had been hesitant to accept the position because it meant moving into management and leaving the comfortable job I had known for years. But I had accepted. The paperwork was still being finalized, and there was one detail my family knew nothing about. Hartwell Services had recently begun negotiations to acquire my parents' company. I hadn't told them because the deal was confidential. I returned to the table and finished dinner quietly. A week later, my new employer called me. "Congratulations, Tessa, everything is finalized." I smiled. "Thank you." Then my manager said, "There's one thing you should know." "What?" "We're sending you to Columbus next month to oversee the transition of the Whitmore Auto Group." I froze. "Whitmore?" "Yes." I almost laughed. My family's company. There was silence. That's your family's business. Yes. My manager sighed. I understand if this creates a conflict. I thought about that dinner. I remembered my father's words. At least she's good at something. No conflict, I said. I'll do the job. The next few weeks were intense. I reviewed financial statements, payroll records, vendor agreements, employee files, and operating costs. The more I looked, the more concerned I became. The company wasn't as healthy as my family pretended. There were unpaid vendor invoices. Payroll taxes had been filed incorrectly. Several employee reimbursements were missing documentation. And there were unusual transfers from one business account into another account controlled by Derek. I didn't assume he had stolen anything. I didn't want revenge. I wanted facts. So I documented everything. I followed company procedures. I didn't access anything I wasn't authorized to review. I simply did my job. Then I discovered something even more disturbing. The financial records Derek had shown my father were different from the records submitted to the acquisition team. Someone had been presenting different numbers to different people. I brought the discrepancy to my manager. He immediately involved the company's legal and accounting teams. An independent review began. 2 weeks later, I was told to attend the final transition meeting. I didn't know whether my family would be there. They were. When I walked into the conference room, Derek was standing beside my father. He was talking confidently to several executives. Then he saw me. His smile disappeared. My mother looked confused. My father stared at me. Tessa. I placed my folder on the table. Good morning. Derek looked at the executives. Why is she here? My new manager stood up. Because Tessa Whitmore is our new director of operations for the Columbus region. The room went completely silent. My father looked at me as though I had suddenly become a stranger. Your new what? Director of operations. Derek laughed nervously. This has to be some kind of mistake. No, I said calmly, it isn't. My father looked toward my manager. You hired my daughter. Yes. And now you're putting her in charge of this company. My manager corrected him. We acquired the company, and yes, she's overseeing the transition. Derek's face turned red. You can't be serious. I looked at him. I am. Then the legal team presented the findings from the independent review. The conflicting financial records were explained. The questionable transfers were documented. And Derek's name appeared repeatedly. He immediately became defensive. I can explain that. The attorney replied, You'll have an opportunity to do so. My father looked at Derek. What did you do? Derek stared at him. I didn't steal anything. I said nothing. That was the hardest part. I had imagined this moment for weeks. I thought I would feel powerful. Instead, I felt sad. Because I wasn't watching an enemy fall. I was watching my brother destroy the trust my father had placed in him. Then came the twist I never expected. The investigators discovered that the altered financial reports had not started with Derek. They traced the earliest discrepancies back nearly 2 years. And the person who had approved the first set of questionable transfers was my mother. She had been moving money between accounts to cover personal expenses, believing the business would recover quickly. Derek had later copied the same behavior and made it worse. My mother looked at me with tears in her eyes. Tessa, please. I looked at her. Please what? We're still family. I took a slow breath. That's what I kept telling myself. She cried. My father sat silently. For the first time in my life, nobody at that table was laughing at me. Nobody was calling me cheap. Nobody was making jokes about my apartment or my car. They were looking at me differently. Not because I had become richer, because I had finally stopped needing their approval. The investigation continued through the proper channels. The company implemented new financial controls, and the people responsible faced consequences based on the findings. I stayed completely out of the personal side of it. My job was to protect the business and the employees who depended on it. And that's exactly what I did. Months later, I visited my parents. The old family house felt strangely quiet. My father opened the door. "You look different," he said. I smiled. "I feel different." He hesitated. "I was wrong about you." I nodded. "I know. I'm proud of you." That sentence used to be something I desperately wanted to hear. But when he finally said it, I realized I didn't need it anymore. I hugged him anyway. Not because everything was forgiven, but because I didn't want their mistakes to decide who I became. Today, I still live in Columbus. I still drive a practical car. I still watch my spending. I still shop for sales. The difference is that I no longer see those things as evidence that I am behind anyone. I built my life carefully, and when my family laughed because they thought I was too small to matter, they made the mistake of judging me by what I owned instead of what I was capable of becoming. I never walked into that conference room to humiliate them. I walked in because I had earned my seat at the table. And sometimes the strongest revenge isn't making people regret underestimating you. It's becoming so confident in who you are that their opinion no longer has the power to hurt you.